Okay, so as most of you guys in the TI community know, they use frequency weapons, they use voice to skull, they use remote neural monitoring, all these different weapons, and they're using microwaves, they're using ELF, extra low frequencies, frequencies of different kinds. And this technology they're using, it goes back, and they always say that the public is always like 15, 20 years behind what the government really has. And so this is some advanced technology, and a lot of it can be traced back to Nikola Tesla and some of the things he was inventing and some of the energy he was tapping into using electromagnetism and things like that. And he's quoted right here as saying, all things have a frequency and a vibration. And another quote is he said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. So this man really understood these things, and a lot of technology we have now can be accredited to him, like the whole electricity system that we have, and a lot of the ways that we use electricity, it could be attested to this guy. And these are some of the things he said, some of the things he were into. And this here is an article about him and his some of his research and things he was trying to do. I'm just gonna read a little bit of it. It says a number of scientific breakthroughs had already shed light on the high frequency phenomenon. In 1873, James Clerk Maxwell in England had proven mathematically that light was electromagnetic radiation. Light was electricity vibrating at an extremely high frequency. Down here in this next paragraph, it says Tesla began to search for a device that could transport him to this unexplored territory. He knew that higher frequencies would have many technical advantages. Lamps could glow brighter, energy could be transmitted more efficiently, and this would all be less dangerous because the energy could pass harmlessly across the body. So that's important to know, because with this technology, it is used against us on our bodies and our minds, and it can be directed to one person, not pass through another person. So the fact that energy like this could be harmless to the body, you could be experiencing these effects without even really having too much physical damage that you feel right away or something, or it could be subtle. And here on this page, this is just you could look this up yourself. These are some of the directed energy weapons and their patent numbers over here. You could look these up. This information is on Google. I looked this up. These are some of the frequencies they're using, in the megahertz, microwave spectrum, different types of frequencies they're using. Some of the symptoms like mind control, V2K, voice, some of the things that targeted individuals know about and go through. And then just look at some of the dates here. Some of these are over 20 years old. Some are like 30 years old. These are the dates of these patents, and then the people who invented them. Some of the descriptions: pulsative manipulation of central nervous systems. Another one is transmits sound to auditory cortex of mammals via remotely applied microwave signals. And it's just a long list. It's a bunch of different ones and different things that they're used for, all the patent numbers, different frequencies they're operating at, all the dates and the people behind them. And then down here is kind of breaks down some of the frequency ranges. Like here you have ULF, ultra low frequencies, ELF, extremely low frequencies, and the ranges that they're in. And some of the applications you could see: satellite, GPS, cell phone, television. These are things all around us. There's satellites everywhere, 5G towers. All these are cell phones. That's obvious. Most people will know, they can do all kinds of things to us with our cell phones. But if you look up patents for frequency weapons or directed energy weapons, and you could look all this up. Due to Freedom of Information Act, there's certain things that we're allowed to see and certain things that we're not, that are still classified. But just imagine what we don't know about. These are just the things that we can figure out about. And it goes deep, you know, all the different things they use it for. And fair use warning. Federal law allows citizens to redistribute portions and segments of copyrighted material for the purposes of education and entertainment. So I'm going to show a clip here. This is Roger Tulsis. He's a whistleblower from California. He used to do security bug sweeps. He used to, for people on around Hollywood and California, high level people, you know, rich people or people that hire him just to sweep their rooms in case they're being bugged and stuff like that. So he knows about certain technology, but hear what he has to say.
Okay, well, electronic harassment is when any person or perpetrator uses an electronic device or groups of electronic devices to either compromise your privacy or to use electronic weapons against you for harm or to control your situation. What's happening now is the black ops and the military and weapons development community want these weapons to be the weapons of choice in future wars. In other words, when we went into Iraq, as an example, they went in and, you know, did the shock and awe. So they blew up the cities, they blew up the bridges, they blew up the infrastructure. And of course, then we had to come in after taking the country over and then spend all that money rebuilding their cities and bridges and, you know, everything. So what they've done is they've decided that what we want to do is have non-lethal weapons. Weapons that can be used against enemies that don't destroy physical things. In other words, not bombs, not bullets, not missiles, but some kind of electronic mind control devices such that you can get mental control over enemies without blowing up infrastructure. So what's happened is though these things were supposed to be developed towards, you know, enemies, they've decided that, you know, in most cases, we're going to have to gain mind control over the general populations that are not warring with us. So what they've done is they put laws in place that allows the Department of Defense and the subcontractors to do mind control experiments on the general population in development of these weapons. So anybody who gets on the bad side of the government could end up being a lab guinea pig.
And how is that legal? Like, how can they use tax dollars for, you know, they're going towards these things and they use them to...
Check this out. Look this up right here. This is what the guy talks about, that you can look this up, how they get away with these things.
To spy or harass others. How's that?
Title 50, Chapter 32, Section 1528. Check it out.
Is this getting worse, this problem? Are you getting more and more people coming to you as the months and years go by?
Well, I get between 6 and 10 calls a day from people, you know, brand new calls a day from people that are suffering from electromagnetic attacks and other kinds of covert activity against themselves. And of course, I get emails from all over the world. Almost every country in the world has a similar problem going on. And so as long as you're within reach of satellites and other kinds of cell tower transmissions, you know, you're within a keystroke of being harassed.
That's how they can track us anywhere. It's all around us. And not just the cell phones. It could be these towers here. There's a lot of different ways.
They're being watched often. Say they're hearing...
And I got another video too. If some of you people might have heard of this guy, if you've looked into these type of videos or whistleblowers to some of these things, his name was Brian Coffrin. And he is basically kind of like he's an ex-gang stalker. He says he used to work in the security industries, and he worked his way up, and then he got hired on as like a private security contractor and all this other stuff. But he explains and breaks this down as well. But yeah, these technologies they're using, it's using frequencies, and everything has a vibration, right? Everything has its own frequency. Everything vibrates at its own frequency. Like matter vibrates slower than gas and water. You know how we learn in school the those laws of how everything is at the atoms are vibrating at different levels. And so they with this technology they found out how to find those certain frequencies to be able to match up with it and match up with your frequency and be able to tap into your frequency. Alright, I got it to work. I was having a bit of technical difficulties, but hear what this man has to say.
Okay, so these are radio frequencies that are being utilized?
That's correct. Yes, they're radio frequencies, microwave signals, the entire spectrum of radio frequencies can be used within a certain range to produce all sorts of different effects. So the way it works is a device broadcasts a radio frequency, let's say at an individual, and that radio frequency will hook up with the resonant frequency of the individual's mind or body, or in this case, DNA. And what happens is once the resonant frequency is found in the targeted individual and the broadcast frequency matches up with that resonant frequency, those two frequencies interlock and they can be thought of as one frequency or one energy.
Kind of like how Wi-Fi connections work. The signals goes through the air and it connects to the electrical circuits or whatever you want to call it of the phone. They do the same with our brain because everything is an electrical signal in our brain. Yeah.
And what happens is between the broadcast frequency and the individual that's receiving the broadcast frequency, once it's resonating, once they are resonating together, a super highway of frequency along which information can be sent is created. And so you can think of it just like fiber optic cables that you use to send signals over the internet that connect people to the internet. It's the exact same thing, only a wireless application of that. And so once you have connected the targeted individual with the frequency and they resonate together, then you have a perfect avenue upon which to send and receive information back and forth. And that's exactly how they manipulate someone's thoughts. They send voices into someone's head. They manipulate their emotions. They manipulate their behavior. And then that's also how they receive back from the individual in real time the vital signs, the emotions, the thoughts, what the person's seeing, what the person's hearing. And then all that information, of course, is rendered on a computer elsewhere via software, and it can be monitored and tracked in real time.
All right, so with these technologies that stem from Tesla that go back, dealing with frequencies and all this and that, what this man said and the man before, and some of the patents that I showed you guys, a lot of this stuff is nothing new. A lot of it stems back from before, and like I said, they always keep the public years behind in technology, and everything that they introduce to the public, you already know that they've been doing research and development before. And so who knows how far advanced they are. But I got some proof here, some evidence that our ancient ancestors, people from hundreds of years ago, even thousands of years ago, were using a lot of these technologies that harness the energy of our electromagnetic earth, the energy that's in the air, they're using frequencies and vibrations and all this and that. And now we use all these harmful technologies, all these radiation technologies. We get cancer more, all this and that, from the Bluetooth, from the Wi-Fi, from the even microwaves. They say it's not as healthy for the food. Like it's pretty much radiating everything. And I got another video here that is explaining it explains how if you look at buildings around and a lot of the old, especially the old architecture, old buildings and the huge buildings that they made and the way that they made them, it kind of looks like they were designed in a way that would be electrical in nature, like that they are harnessing energy somehow, and some of the materials they use are electric conductors. So hear what this video shows and what it has to say.
Kansas homeowners, if you're an Evergy customer, then do not skip this video. There is a solar program.
Just look at the shapes of all these things. Like, don't those look like antennas? Or they could be used to harness energy in some way. And like, if you think about it, buildings that they make now, like this they say they probably built this in like 1700s, 1800s, you know, if you look in history books and pictures. But buildings that they make now, how come they never make any new buildings that look like this? Anything close to this, you know, like such a structure as this. And you can look up some of these terms. They're electrical terms, and this guy's pointing out how a lot of these parts of these buildings look like things like resonators, antennas, and things of that nature.
Welcome to the future. Except it's the past. The future came and went, and we missed it. The magnificent architecture we see throughout our realm, in which the official liars and controllers of our world have termed historicist, neoclassical, Renaissance, Gothic, and so on, all belong to one whole unified civilization. A civilization so developed they had harnessed the power of electromagnetism to such a high degree that they not only built these huge structures, but also crafted them with utter finesse and beauty. A celebration of their own technological advancement. The structures were designed with the sole intention of harvesting and generating electromagnetic energy and distributing it across the world. Their cities, towns, an entire way of life ran and depended on the use of free, clean, and powerful electromagnetic energy. The energy was harnessed and collected from the ionosphere above our heads through the use of antennas, spires, domes, and towers. All the impossible structures we see today have been repurposed and rebranded by our controllers and the citizens of the 19th century. This is not a church. This is not a mosque. This is not a castle. And this is not a government building. These are generators, powerful and gargantuous. They would collect and generate the electromagnetic energy, which was then stored in huge power stations and distributed and redirected by sophisticated, advanced structures, one of which is the huge electromagnet, or what we've come to know as triumphal arches. The energy was stored in batteries and capacitors, such as towers and obelisks. All cities were constructed across our realm in the form of one big, interconnected power grid, much like a huge computer motherboard.
And yeah, so you see how everything is kind of like in the form of a motherboard when you look above, and everything is electrical. Everything has electricity and everything has a frequency. And they seems like in the past, you know, they knew this about the earth and they used it for good. They used it for their technology, a free energy. And these days we gotta pay for all energy. We gotta pay for all these things with the Wi-Fi, our phone data, the lights in our house, you know. And just imagine, you know, we could be harnessing free energy, not have to pay. And not just that, but they use a lot of this now for bad, making the frequency weapons and all these things we deal with, you know. And I have another video here that ties in with a lot of this same stuff here and Nikola Tesla.
Was invented at the...
Let me get to the right part here.
Can do is find false, drop it and get rid of it, and eventually when you can't get rid of any more false, what you're left with is the truth. How much false can you find? And there's lots in history. I was looking around the internet and came across the images of the 1893 Chicago World Exposition, and it blew my mind because it looked like ancient Rome in the middle of downtown Chicago. And as I looked at it further, well, here's another one in Philadelphia, here's another one in St. Louis, in Buffalo, in San Francisco, and then as soon as they were done, they tore them all down and threw them in the garbage. That just told me.
You hear that? They tore down all these ancient structures. Just imagine all the buildings we haven't been able to see that are huge, that are nothing like the buildings they make now. They tore a bunch of them down. I wonder why.
There's something wrong with all of these. The story of the expositions is a gigantic lie. And I think it's so huge of a lie because I think they're right at a bridge point when so many things about the 1800s that seem strange and weird, right as this sort of period ends of unbelievable strangeness, and all of a sudden these fairs spring up all over the world with impossible buildings we're talking about, which are colossal structures. Chicago built 700 acres of fair in supposedly less than 2 years. St. Louis built 1,200 acres of exposition buildings. One of the buildings in Chicago, the manufacturer's building, would house 300,000 people. There's a giant statue in the middle of the lagoon. It was called the Golden Lady, and it was known as the Statue of the Republic. It was 65 feet tall. They say it was covered in gold leaf that had copper underneath, but others speculate it was actually made out of solid gold. So you're talking 65-foot high, potentially solid gold statue. We're talking giant structures and looking like ancient Rome with towers and domes and columns and the most fine, ornate pieces to them in these record, unbelievable times. Then as soon as they're done, chuck them in the garbage. Like Jackson Park is a swamp. So supposedly they had to drive down tens of thousands of wooden stakes in order to support the weight of everything. They dug out massive lagoons, lakes. They had a canal system that ran through the entire exposition. They also had an above-ground electric train. An electric train, well, where's the electricity coming from? That's running around the park. They had a moving walkway down by the shore. Not enough people are asking, where does this technology come from?
Just to frame it, if I'm not mistaken, the Chicago Fair was the first time people had seen electric light.
Tesla's the one who got the electricity contract for the Chicago Exposition, and it was certainly more than all of the lights anyway that were in New York City at the time were at the Chicago Exposition.
That must have been mind-blowing for most of those people who had only seen gaslight or candlelight at night to see that city lit up in such a way. Again, now the way since 1901, we are told, whether it's true or not, the idea of being able to electrically do anything hasn't been around that long.
And this fair is bizarre. This is supposed to be Tesla's fair, where he managed to somehow move electricity from Niagara Falls to Buffalo for the fair. No one's really explained how he actually did that. And at the middle of the fair is a 395-foot-high electrical tower, on top of which, of course, is a female golden statue called the Goddess of Light. And this thing was lit up by some suggest 500,000 electric light bulbs. Again, when you look at the photos of this thing, it's just, where do they really get the power from?
I mean, think of what it would take today if you had a place with no electricity and no way to pipe it in, the generators that would have to be built.
For example, there's a building that went up for the Barcelona exposition in 1888. It was claimed to be the fastest built building in the world. 5,000 square meters, capacity for 2,000 guests, 600 rooms, 30 apartments, and it was supposed to be built in 53 days.
Wow.
This is supposed to be a time of horse and buggy. The 2-year building times are actually impossible.
Yeah, how did they do
the
it
two most
if
likely
they had
theories
horses
would
and
be either
buggies?
A, they had a technology that they're not supposed to have, and it really was built in that time frame. Even if they built them, they had to build them out of marble and stone in record time. Or if the buildings were already there, they'd been there for hundreds or thousands of years, fixed up, refurbished, repainted, hence the term whitewashed, which is the term that was used for the Chicago Exposition, which was paint all the buildings with this brand new spray paint that they had just developed to spray paint all the buildings in record time, so you couldn't tell if anything was old or anything was new.
How long did these things tend to stay open? When they built these things, supposedly over 2 years, which is the narrative, how long were they there for?
About 6 months.
6 months for the public to come.
And then what was amazing, for example, in St. Louis, 2 days after the fair ended, they brought in a demolition team from Chicago with explosives and blew the thing up. They actually used dynamite to blow it up, and they say threw it in landfills. Things like the World Fairs shows there was a time in our past, and even not that far in our past, where humans seemed to be at a completely higher level. Human living and human knowledge were constructed into the buildings using cymatics, using sacred geometry. These fairs,
If anybody knows about this experiment, they used vibrations at different frequencies, and each one, that's sand that's on that board or little rocks or whatever, and each vibration that they set it at, it made a different geometric pattern with the sand or whatever. And so it was showing how the vibrations and frequencies at different tones and this and that have different shapes, like, and if you look, sometimes the buildings have shapes like that, in their windows or whatever.
They're so important to study because the history that we know right now as history was invented at the time these fairs were going on. One of their underlying nefarious purposes was to teach a historical narrative to the population that they were supposed to believe and agree with. And scarily, the world we're walking into today is in some way has its origins during the time of these fairs.
Check this video out. This is supposedly a modern Tesla coil, a building. Looks like it's Japanese or something, but on the top right here is like an antenna, but look what it's doing. This is how the technology could work. If this video is real or not, I don't know, but if it is, this is how it would work. That antenna is harnessing the free energy in the atmosphere. Alright, so that's that video, but yeah, with all these different connections, it all shows that the technology that they're using to hit us with frequencies and direct energy at us, put voice in our skulls, they're using it for evil, but it's the same technology that can be used for good. And if you understand how the universe works, like Tesla said, it's all in energies, it's in numbers, it's in frequencies and vibrations, and you can also do healing. You can also do good with these things, but as it is, the devil is an imitator. He imitates everything of creation, everything of God. Everything he does is for the opposite, though, for his kingdom. So he uses everything that would be for good for bad. And I got a few Bible verses here, but in the book of Enoch, it was talking about how the fallen angels, the watchers, they were here to assist mankind in those days. But they, through the lust that they had inside of them, that they started teaching us evil and lusting after the women. But over here in chapter 8 in Enoch, it says, "Moreover, Azazel taught men to make swords, knives, shields, breastplates, the fabrication of mirrors, and the workmanship of bracelets and ornaments, the use of paint, the beautifying of the eyebrows, the use of stones of every valuable and select kind, and of all sorts of dyes, so that the world became altered." So this goes back far, these type of things. It goes back in ancient history, that there was always technology, but it wasn't always used for good. And we're living in a time now where they're trying to hide and keep the public, limited on their knowledge of some of this. And so it's good to be aware and to learn and research these things to find out, what are these technologies they're using against us, and what are these things they keep bringing out to the public. They're not going to tell you the other side of what their real intentions are. And also it says in the Bible, there's nothing new. In Ecclesiastes 1:9, what has been will be again, what has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. So if this technology existed in the past, things like this were happening in the past civilizations have been destroyed, so the evil can't last forever. This civilization will be destroyed too. And and another, just to people to be comforted, no weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper, and every tongue that shall rise against thee in judgment shall thou condemn. Isaiah 54:17. So to the TIs out there, don't be fearful of these things, of that they're using these weapons, technology, all these things against us. It only goes so far, and it's not gonna last forever either. And there's always a method to their madness, and there's always a way to expose them and find out what's really going on, so you can always be prepared. And that's all I got for this one. I'm out. Stay blessed, stay safe, and peace.